Cold refuge. The winds of Helios 7 howled like vengeful spirits as Mirathal trudged through knee-deep snow, her violet skin almost blue with cold. Clutched against her chest was her daughter Nova, unconscious and wrapped in the remnants of Mira's thermal cloak. The girl's normally vibrant purple complexion had faded to a dull lavender, her breath coming in weak, shallow puffs that crystallized instantly in the brutal air. Ahead, through the swirling white, Mira spotted the faint glow of the human outpost. Research. Station 17, if her stolen navigation data was correct. Her legs threatened to buckle with each step, blood from her wounded side leaving a trail of violet droplets in the pristine snow behind her. Inside the station, Eli Reeves sat before a bank of monitors, absently rotating the metal identification tags that hung around his neck. 3 years since he'd left military service as a combat medic, and still he couldn't break the habit. The scanner pinged, alerting him to movement outside the perimeter. "What the hell?" Eli muttered, squinting at the blurry thermal image. He grabbed his parka and sidearm, hesitating only briefly before stepping toward the airlock. The outer door slid open, revealing a figure that nearly collapsed at his feet. Eli's weapon instinctively raised, then lowered when he saw the child in the stranger's arms. "Please," Mira whispered, her accented voice breaking through chattering teeth. "My daughter. She will not survive the cold much longer." Eli recognized her species immediately. Lissari, the enemy, or at least they had been before their civilization, was reduced to scattered refugees following the Helios conflict. Their distinctive purple skin and the small iridescent markings along their temples were unmistakable. "This is a restricted research facility," he said, his voice colder than he intended. "I can't take her," Mira interrupted, extending her arms with her precious burden. "I offer myself in exchange. Shelter her, save her, and you may do with me as protocol demands." The desperation in her eyes struck something deep inside Eli. He'd seen that look before on battlefields and in field hospitals, the raw, primal need of a parent willing to sacrifice everything for their child. Against every regulation, Eli holstered his weapon and stepped forward. But instead of taking only the child, he swept both mother and daughter into his arms. "Medical bays this way," he said gruffly. Inside, Eli worked methodically, connecting Nova to the medical scanner while keeping one eye on her mother. Mira swayed on her feet, one hand pressed to her side where dark violet blood seeped between her fingers. "You're injured," Eli said, nodding toward a second examination table. "Sit." "My daughter first," Mira insisted, her voice fading as her knees finally gave way. Eli caught her before she hit the floor. "Damn stubborn," he muttered, lifting her onto the adjacent table. "Like every mother in the galaxy." As he treated Mira's wound, a deep gash that had narrowly missed vital organs, he found himself studying her face. Beyond the alien features was an unmistakable nobility, a quiet strength that seemed at odds with her desperate situation. The station's communication system crackled to life. "Research Station 17, this is Command. Storm system has intensified to Category 5. All external communications will be disrupted for approximately 3 weeks. Maintain standard protocols until contact resumes." Eli glanced at the two Lissari, then at the comm unit. "Acknowledged, Command," he replied, making a decision that would change all their lives. "Station secure. Reeves out." He disconnected the comm and continued treating his unexpected guests, knowing that in saving them, he might have just sacrificed his own future. Thawing hearts. The storm raged through its 3rd day, transforming the research station into an island of warmth amid an ocean of ice and howling wind. Eli sat beside Nova's bed, monitoring her vital signs as they gradually strengthened. The Lissari child had finally opened her eyes that morning, deep amethyst orbs that regarded him with solemn curiosity rather than fear. "You're safe," Eli had told her, carefully enunciating each word. He wasn't sure how much human language she understood. From the doorway, Mira watched the interaction, her shoulders relaxing incrementally as she observed the gentle way the human tended to her daughter. She stepped into the small medical bay, her movements still stiff from her healing wound. "Her fever has broken," Eli said without looking up. "She's going to be all right." Mira approached, her gaze fixed on her daughter. "You have my eternal gratitude," she said softly. Her accent gave the words a musical quality, consonants softened and vowels elongated. "I had not expected such kindness from a human." Eli glanced up, an unexpected flash of shame coursing through him. "We're not all monsters. Nor are all Lissari the demons your military portrayed us to be," she countered, lowering herself carefully into the chair opposite him. "Yet here we sit, divided by the ghosts of propaganda." A hint of a smile touched Eli's lips. "For a refugee, you speak our language impressively well." "I was a cultural liaison before the war," Mira explained, brushing her fingers gently across Nova's forehead. "I spent years studying human customs, literature, languages. I believed understanding would prevent conflict." Her voice hardened. "I was wrong." Silence settled between them, broken only by the constant hum of the station's environmental systems and the occasional beep from Nova's monitors. Outside, the wind shrieked against the reinforced windows. "She has your eyes," Eli observed, nodding toward Nova. Something vulnerable flickered across Mira's face. Her father's determination, though. Tarek would have walked through fire to protect her. She swallowed hard. He did in the end. Eli's fingers instinctively found his identification tags. "I'm sorry," he said simply. Later that evening, after sharing a meal of standard-issue rations that Mira politely pretended to enjoy, Eli found her standing before the station's largest viewport. Beyond the glass, curtains of green and blue aurora danced across the night sky, rendering the brutal landscape momentarily beautiful. "The storm is strengthening," Mira observed, arms wrapped around herself. Eli stepped beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "The northern hemisphere of Helios 7 is notorious for these ice systems. They can last for weeks." Mira turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Will you truly be punished for helping us?" Eli considered lying but decided against it. "Harboring unauthorized refugees, especially Lissari?" "Yes. But command won't know unless I tell them." "Why risk yourself for strangers? For enemies?" "Because I've seen enough death," Eli answered, his voice rough with unexpected emotion. He gestured toward the sleeping quarters where Nova rested, "and because no child deserves to suffer for the sins of those who came before." Mira studied him, her gaze penetrating. "You were there, weren't you? During the attacks on Lissar Prime." Eli's silence was confirmation enough. "I do not blame you," Mira said, surprising him. "Wars are started by leaders and endured by everyone else." She hesitantly reached out, her slender purple fingers hovering near his hand without quite touching. "Perhaps it is time we both stopped carrying the weight of choices that were never ours to make." That night, as the aurora painted the station in ethereal light, something fragile began to form between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but the possibility of it. Shared wounds. 2 weeks into the storm, the station's power grid faltered. Eli worked frantically at the maintenance panel, rerouting essential systems to the backup generators while Mira kept Nova entertained with stories of Lissari constellations. "The Sisters of Mercy," Mira explained, using her fingers to trace invisible patterns on the ceiling, "were believed to guide lost travelers home." Nova watched, entranced, as her mother's hands created shadow puppets in the emergency lighting. From his position by the panel, Eli couldn't help but smile at the scene. He'd grown accustomed to their presence, even welcomed it. The station, once a self-imposed prison of isolation, now felt almost like a home. "There," he announced as the lights flickered and stabilized. "That should hold until the main generators recover." "You are quite resourceful," Mira observed, helping Nova arrange the blankets they'd gathered in the central living area. With power conservation measures in effect, they'd decided to share the communal space for warmth. Later, with Nova finally asleep between them, Mira and Eli spoke in hushed tones about the worlds they'd lost, hers to destruction, his to disillusionment. I was a combat medic, Eli revealed, staring into the depths of his steaming mug, patching up soldiers just so they could return to killing. After the orbital strikes on your homeworld, he trailed off, unable to continue. Mira's voice was gentle when she finally spoke. You believe your hands are stained with my people's blood, aren't they? Eli asked bitterly. I was part of the machine that destroyed your world. The fact that question haunts you is answer enough, Mira said. She reached across the sleeping form of her daughter and placed her hand atop his. The warmth of her touch, so alien yet so fundamentally comforting, sent an unexpected current through him. Their eyes met across the dim space and something shifted between them. Acknowledgement of an attraction that had been building since that first day. When the power failed completely in the middle of the night, plunging the station into darkness and bitter cold, they moved Nova to the emergency shelter area equipped with thermal insulation. But the temperature continued to drop in the main living quarters where they remained. We should conserve body heat, Eli suggested, practical despite the sudden awkwardness between them. Mira nodded, and they arranged themselves beneath the thermal blankets. The innocent necessity of their proximity couldn't disguise the tension humming between them. Your heart beats faster than a human's, Eli observed, his voice low as he felt her pulse against his chest. Is that all that makes us different? Mira asked, her breath warm against his neck. His hand found hers in the darkness. No, he admitted, but maybe our differences matter less than what we share. Their first kiss was tentative, explorative, the meeting of two worlds previously kept apart by hatred and fear. Her lips were softer than he'd imagined, her touch hesitant at first, then increasingly confident as ancient barriers crumbled between them. Are you certain? Eli whispered as her fingers traced the contours of his face. Mira's answer was to draw him closer, her body fitting against his with a perfection that defied their different origins. In the darkness of the frozen station, they discovered each other with reverent hands and whispered words, finding in their union not just physical warmth but a healing neither had thought possible. Afterward, lying with her head against his chest, Mira traced the old scars that marked his skin. These tell your story, she murmured. Eli gently touched the iridescent markings along her temple. And these tell yours. My people believe that when souls recognize each other, even stars cannot keep them apart, Mira said quietly. For the first time in years, Eli felt the weight of his past lifting. Then perhaps this storm was never an accident, he replied, and pulled her closer as the frozen world raged ineffectually outside. Dangerous choices. Nova's laughter echoed through the station corridors, a sound that would have been unimaginable 3 weeks earlier. She chased a small drone Eli had reprogrammed as a toy, her previously frail body now vibrant with health and energy. Careful near the thermal units, Mira cautioned, though her voice held more affection than worry. She stood in the doorway of the communications room, watching Eli hunched over the console. Storm's breaking, he announced, not looking up from the display. Command will re-establish contact within 48 hours. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Their sanctuary had an expiration date. Mira crossed the room and placed a hand on his shoulder. What will you tell them? Eli leaned into her touch. I don't know yet. The lie tasted bitter on his tongue. He knew exactly what regulations demanded. Immediate reporting of unauthorized Lizari refugees, followed by their transfer to a processing facility. What happened after that was classified. But the rumors among military personnel were grim. That night, as they lay entwined in what had become their shared quarters, Eli traced the delicate curve of Mira's spine. Her purple skin seemed to glow in the dim light, the iridescent markings along her temples shimmering whenever she moved. Come with me, he whispered against her hair. Mira propped herself up on one elbow. What? When command reestablishes contact, we could be gone. I know people in the outer colonies who could help us disappear. Hope and fear battled in Mira's expression. You would abandon your life here for us? Eli cupped her face with his hands. There's nothing here for me but ghosts. You and Nova. You've given me something I thought was lost forever. He kissed her gently. A future worth fighting for. Mira's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she pressed herself against him. Their bodies moved together with newfound urgency, Each touch a promise, each kiss a declaration of what neither dared yet to name aloud. Dawn brought unwelcome news. Nova's fever had returned, worse than before. Her immune system is reacting to something, Eli said, studying the medical scanner with growing concern. She needs specialized treatment, medications I don't have here. Could you request emergency supplies? Mira asked, her voice tight with worry as she stroked Nova's burning forehead. Eli's expression darkened. That would mean revealing your presence immediately. Then we do what we must, Mira said firmly. Her life comes first. With grim determination, Eli activated the emergency communication system. Research Station 17 to command. Medical emergency. Requesting immediate drop of immunomodulators and synthetic plasma. Over. The response was immediate and unwelcome. Reeves, this is Major Chen. State the nature of your medical emergency. Are you injured? Eli closed his eyes briefly. Negative. I have civilians here. A child with severe immunological collapse. The silence that followed stretched painfully. Civilians? Chen's voice had hardened. Elaborate, Reeves. That's a direct order. 2 Lysari refugees arrived during the storm, Eli replied, his voice professionally detached despite the turmoil within. A mother and daughter. The child is critically ill. You harbored enemy aliens? Chen's tone conveyed both disbelief and mounting anger. Hold position, Reeves. A security team is being dispatched. ETA 18 hours. You are to detain the subjects and prepare them for transport. Is that understood? Eli stared at the communication panel, his knuckles white against the console. The child needs immediate medical attention, sir. Without intervention, she won't survive 18 hours. That is not your concern, Reeves. Your job was to maintain the station, not compromise security by harboring unauthorized aliens. Consider yourself relieved of duty. Effective immediately. The connection terminated with a harsh click, leaving Eli standing in silence. When he returned to the medical bay, Mira took one look at his face and understood. They're coming for us. Eli moved to the medical cabinet, gathering supplies with methodical efficiency. We have 16 hours to be somewhere else, he replied, his decision made. I'm not letting them take you. As night fell, they prepared the station's emergency shuttle, a small craft intended for short-range evacuation. Eli programmed a course to Pax Luna, a mining moon rumored to harbor a community of war refugees protected by local authorities who turned a blind eye to galactic politics. Nova's condition had stabilized somewhat after Eli administered an experimental treatment using modified human medications, but she remained weak, her breathing shallow. We should reach Pax Luna before she needs another dose, Eli explained as he secured her to the shuttle's medical cradle. Mira touched his face, her expression solemn. You're giving up everything. No, Eli corrected her, covering her hand with his own. I'm finding everything. The station's proximity alarm blared suddenly, shocking them both. Security team, Eli said grimly, checking the scanner. They must have pushed their engines to the limit. We've got minutes, not hours. As the shuttle's engines fired up, the station's external doors began cycling open. Eli's hands flew over the controls, overriding safety protocols to force an emergency launch. Hold on, he warned as the craft shot from its bay into the frozen night, acceleration pressing them back against their seats as pursuit became inevitable. New constellations. The shuttle screamed through Helios 7's upper atmosphere, trailing fire against the black canvas of space. Behind them, 2 military vessels gave chase, their weapons systems active but not yet firing. They're trying to force us into a tractor beam, Eli explained, executing a series of evasive maneuvers that strained the small craft's engines. They want us alive. Mira sat beside Nova's medical cradle, one hand on her daughter's forehead, the other gripping the safety harness as the shuttle lurched violently. Can we outrun them? Not in a straight chase, Eli admitted. But I know these systems better than they do. He banked the shuttle sharply, diving toward a massive debris field, remnants of the ancient mining operations that had first brought humans to this sector. The pursuing vessels hesitated, then followed more cautiously. The Carillion belt, Mira breathed, recognizing the glittering field of metallic asteroids. It's unstable. Exactly, Eli confirmed, his focus absolute as he threaded their craft through the spinning fragments. Their ships are too large for fine maneuvering. A proximity alarm blared as one pursuer ventured too close to a tumbling asteroid, its shields flaring brilliantly before the ship veered away, damaged but operational. The second vessel maintained distance, apparently unwilling to risk similar damage. "Now," Eli exclaimed, punching the emergency thrusters as they cleared the debris field. The sudden burst of speed hurled them toward a dense nebula that swirled with purple and blue gases, eerily similar to the hue of Mira's skin. "The veil," Mira identified, hope rising in her voice, sensor dampening. "And a direct path to Pax Luna if we navigate by visual reference instead of instruments," Eli added, powering down non-essential systems as they plunged into the cosmic cloud. "They'll lose us here." For 6 tense hours they drifted through the nebula, guided only by Eli's memory of ancient stellar navigation charts and Mira's innate Lisseri sensitivity to electromagnetic fields. Nova's condition improved steadily as they traveled, her body responding to the treatments and perhaps, Mira suggested, to their proximity to the energy-rich nebula that resonated with Lisseri physiology. When they finally emerged from the veil, a small, cratered moon hung before them, unremarkable except for the scattered lights of settlement domes visible on its surface. "Pax Luna," Eli announced, relief evident in his voice. "Officially a mining colony, unofficially a haven for those who don't fit neatly into galactic categories. Their landing at the outskirts of the main settlement raised little interest. Another, anonymous craft among many that arrived without documentation or explanation. The colony's unofficial leader, a weathered woman named Soraya with mismatched cybernetic eyes, reviewed their situation with practical efficiency. "Ex-military harboring Lysari refugees," she summarized, tapping gnarled fingers against her desk. "Hardly the most complicated case we've seen. We can provide basic housing in the Eastern Dome. Work is mandatory. Everyone contributes. I have medical training," Eli offered, "and I am versed in 7 languages, including 3 non-human dialects," Mira added. Soraya nodded approvingly. "Both valuable." "The child?" "Nova," Mira said, her arm protectively around her daughter's shoulders. "She is young but learns quickly." "Good, children are our future," Soraya said simply. "Especially here." Their assigned quarters were small but clean, 2 rooms with basic furnishings and a tiny viewport that offered a vista of stars unknown to either of them. That first night, after settling Nova in her own sleeping space, Mira and Eli stood before the viewport, the reality of their new existence settling around them. "Do you regret it?" Mira asked softly, her reflection ghostly in the transparent aluminum. "Leaving everything behind?" Eli turned her gently to face him. "I left nothing that mattered," he said firmly. "Everything I want is here." He hesitated, then added the words he'd held back for weeks. "I love you, Mira. You and Nova both." Mira's eyes shimmered with emotion, the iridescent markings at her temples glowing faintly in the dim light. "My people believe that souls find each other across lifetimes," she whispered. "Perhaps in another life we were already together. Perhaps in this one, we always will be," Eli replied, drawing her close. As they stood wrapped in each other's arms, gazing out at unfamiliar stars, Eli realized that for the first time since the war, he felt truly at peace. The nightmares that had haunted him, the faces of those he couldn't save, the worlds reduced to ash, seemed to recede in the light of this new beginning. 3 months later, they stood on the observation deck of the colony's central dome, watching as Nova played with other refugee children, human, Lissari, and species Eli couldn't name. The girls' laughter carried across the artificial park, a sound of uncomplicated joy that neither parent had dared hope to hear again. "She belongs," Mira observed, her fingers intertwined with Eli's. "Here, where differences don't matter." "We all do," Eli replied, squeezing her hand gently. Above them, through the reinforced dome, stars wheeled in patterns neither recognized from their lost homes. New constellations for a new life. One forged not from the ashes of war, but from the courage to choose love when the universe offered only hatred. Mira leaned against him, her body fitting perfectly against his despite the evolutionary light years between their species. "Promise me something," she said softly. "Anything. Promise me that when Nova asks about our story, we'll tell her the truth, that sometimes the universe brings together what should never have been separated." Eli kissed her gently, the touch of her violet skin against his now as familiar as his own heartbeat. "I promise," he whispered against her lips. "And I'll tell her that true courage isn't found in war or violence, but in offering shelter when everyone else would close their doors." As night fell over Pax Luna, three souls who had found each other against impossible odds watched the stars emerge, not as markers of territory or barriers between worlds, but as beacons of possibility in a universe where love, against all odds, still found a way to thrive.